Welcome back to Bulla, the Rainbow Man. In this lecture 3, we're going to show you some astounding revelations as per lecture 1 and lecture 2. We hope you enjoy what we're about to show you. We'd like to start off with the sacred geometry of Horus the Ra God. You'll see the mask of Horus. We're going to run through this mask and point out some factors there that we're sure you'll enjoy. We'd like to first point out the eye of Horus, which is in fact the Ark of Covenants. Now see the eye, the bottom of the eye, where the eye finishes up down the bottom, that is actually the Kofar box, and that square is the King's Chamber. Now this face is actually a schematic. It's actually a draftsman's drawing of the Giza pyramid and the King's Chamber. See under the chin, see the frame with the 4 blocks in the picture. Then see to the right the steps going down to the right, lower right hand side, see the steps. Then see above that, see the straight line going up with the zigzag. That indicates electromagnetic charge. So we have the eye into the Kofar box, being the eye of Horus is the Ark of Covenants, and we've got the stone block pump, then we've got the steps, then we've got the electromagnetics. Okay, so now with that in mind, let's put up the King's Chamber and have a look at this picture. Now, you'll notice when you look at the King's Chamber, see just outside the King's Chamber, see the stone block frame with the same stone blocks in it. Look inside the King's Chamber. See the Kofar box at the bottom of the King's Chamber? That's where the Ark of Covenants through. We are going to further explain the actual Ark of Covenants and what it does and how it's used and why it's used. Okay, the Ark of Covenants. The Ark of Covenants is the eye of Horus, meaning the waves that are generated on Giza pyramid are, in fact, light waves. So therefore the process is invisible. And what Horus did, being a quantum physicist, engineer, he designed the Ark of Covenants so that one didn't need to see the invisible waves, because upon the wings of the golden angels was placed a large sapphire stone inside the King's Chamber, so that when the pyramid was run, if it had worked correctly, then the Ark of Covenant inside that stone would be a charge, and then at a later date they could take the Ark of Covenants out without going anywhere near that stone, and then they would take it out and have a ceremony and choose a volunteer who was going to volunteer to approach that stone with their hand and slowly reach their hand out towards that stone while all the archites and the priests were surrounding them. And if a spark came out of that stone into that person's hand, they would actually jump, and that everyone would applaud, because then they knew that they'd actually run the pyramid correctly and what they needed was obtained, which was a huge electromagnetic plume that covered 300 miles surrounding the Giza pyramid, which then drew the rain. If you've got high magnetics, you get low barometric pressure. And when you get low barometric pressure, the clouds form, the storm forms, and you get rain. So once the proving up of the Ark of Covenants, that's why it's called the Ark of Covenants, the Ark being a spark. Once that was seen to have been in the stone, then everybody knew to plant their seeds in their paddocks and their fields, because it was going to rain. Okay, so now we're going to move on, and we're actually going to run the pyramid. We're going to load the pyramid up, and we're going to run it. So what we need to run the pyramid, we have to start the day before and we need about 100 staff. Now, these people are used with goat skin buckets, and they're placed all the way up. You'll see a tunnel going up through the step chamber to the king's chamber. And you'll see down the bottom of the schematics the sump at the bottom of the pyramid. That's where all the water is kept, in the bottom of the pyramid. And what we have to do is we have to first place the Ark of Covenants in the king's chamber, place the sapphire stone on the top of the wings of the golden angels. Then we have to use these 100 staff as a bucket brigade, to bucket up the water from the sump. We're going to fill up all the bottom level of the king's chamber full with water. Then we're going to raise those big stone blocks up in that frame, fill it right up with water, and then we're going to leave it sit. And then tomorrow morning at dawn, we'll have a couple of archites up at the king's chamber that are going to drop those blocks. Okay, so here we are. It's early dawn. The weather's quite chilly. It's quite cold in the desert, because we're in the desert. It's quite cold. We've got our archites up in place, up at the stone blocks, and we're just waiting for Moses to arrive with his stick. And Moses is going to be standing on the back of the Sphinx with his stick. And we've got some archites at the door. We've got some other archites at the doorway of the pyramid. And it's Moses' job to watch the sun touch the top of the highest pyramid. Now, when that sun touches the top of the highest pyramid, Moses is to throw his stick upon the ground. That will signal the archites at the doorway to the pyramid, where they will whistle up the step chamber to signal to the archites up in the king's chamber to begin dropping the blocks into the pool of water in the king's chamber. That will begin to cascade the water down the step chamber. And as it does, it cascades and spills over the steps. Every time it goes over a step, it makes more bubbles and more mist and more mist. Every time a bubble bursts, that makes hydro, H2O at atomic 6. Now, with the front door of the pyramid left open, Giza being so large, it actually convexes like a chimney, and it sucks the mist back up the ducting under the step chamber, past the Queen's chamber, and up, and the mist actually convexes out and goes up through those air ducts that you can see in the schematics. Now, those air ducts come out on the north and the south side of the pyramid. But remember now, we're in the desert. It's cold, and the sun has just come up. And in the desert, when it's cold, when the sun comes up, the breeze, that little bit of a breeze, always sucks towards the sun, to the east. So we've got the breeze sucking towards the east, and the mist comes out and is taken by that breeze around onto the front of the pyramid. Now, if you note the next schematic, you'll see that the front of the pyramid is not flat. It has a V in the front of the pyramid. That V is there to cause a vacuum, so that the mist is suspended on the eastern side of the pyramid long enough so the sun can strike the mist, distort the perfect spheres of the mist crystals into its shape, and make the heterodynamic electromagnetic hydro waves, the 4-element driven wave, the array. And out of that array comes the large light fan that projects magnetically polarized north and south magnetically. That fires up into the higher altitudes, way up into space. Now, remembering this is a fixed sheet of light being projected up, and it's fixed, remembering that the Earth is rotating. So therefore, this big, huge light fan, like a peacock's tail, it's a fan shape running north and south magnetically from horizon to horizon, that wave is swept into the sun by Earth's rotation. And at the top of that fan in the outer space at the ionosphere, it's traveling many times the speed of light. And that wave actually causes a collision with the oncoming sun's rays. And it's within that collision we get the photon splitting. That's where we get the pranic energy, the supermagnetics in fusion in that collision. That energizes all the way back down that light beam into the dynamic wave and transfers into the ground, into our magnetic grids on Earth. And that charges up and makes what they call a hotspot or a big plume in the ground. Now, that's a higher level of specific gravity, and the clouds love that sort of high energy. And that forms a low pressure cell. As the clouds accumulate, they come closer and closer and accumulate around within that 300-kilometer radius of Giza, causes a low pressure storm cell and makes it rain. That's what is meant by when I say Moses threw his stick upon the ground that made the snakes, that made it hail. The snakes being the light waves. Thanks for being with us, and thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this lecture. Stay tuned for the next episode and the next lecture, Bulla the Rainbow Man.